Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Talent Finders would like to welcome executive producer of the film Critical Thinking and entrepreneur Carla Berkowitz. So welcome, Carla.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And it's such an honor to have you on. I firstly wanted to congratulate you on all your achievements. So can you share with us how your producing an entrepreneurial career started?
Good question. That was a long time ago. Well, I started in this industry in a really, kind of like it's a similar way, but on a much smaller level. So I started in the early 90s producing fitness videos.
Okay.
And at the time, you had to buy them. There was no internet really to speak of, and you couldn't sell anything on the internet. So there was nothing for free. And so everybody and their uncle were doing fitness videos, and I decided to jump in. And I had some interesting ideas, and I did about 15. And sold them both, domestic and internationally. And from there, I got a lot of education about how to bring a concept in my mind to an actual product. And then, that was just the beginning. I thought initially my first one was like, yay, I made a video. Here it is. All the people, doing the fitness choreography that either I did or the expert did. But then I realized it has to be sold, so that's when I got my education about the end of the beginning. I say the end of the beginning was just the beginning.
Absolutely.
So after I made the video, I had to learn on my own how to convince a distributor that this was needed in the world. And I'll get into that. I'll get into that later about ideas that are everywhere, and some need to be told and some don't. But in my mind, in my young, impressionable mind, and my young, like very aggressive entrepreneur, I guess, for lack of a better word, mind, every one of my videos needed to be invented and sold. And I was not wrong because they all did very well. As a matter of fact, the funny thing is I don't even have, in order to get my own videos, I literally have to go on like eBay still. And this is like 20 years. I have to go on eBay and buy my own stuff, which is funny because it's just the way it is. I mean, it was a very different technology at that point. And it was actually harder, which again taught me a lot of lessons that I used for critical thinking to make this movie. It taught me lessons about how to sell something to a distributor, how to, make sure that mine stood out. There was, again, like I said, no internet. So there were 800 numbers, that you had to use, and real estate in places like Borders and Barnes and Noble and Walmarts and Targets and that kind of stuff. And that is basically how, and it was very hard to compete with the big ones like Jane Fonda's and all the other, all the other Jane Fonda type videos. I was just a little fish, but yet I managed to do them over and over and over again. And I stopped only when the internet was robust enough, I guess, for lack of a better word, that everybody was producing videos as well and giving them away for free. So nobody actually had to buy things anymore. So I stopped and pivoted.
Amazing.
But that's pretty much how I started. I didn't go to film school. I just learned, I didn't realize why I learned and what I was learning was going to help me later on, but that's pretty much how I started. So there's no such thing as you can't do it because you didn't go to film school and blah, blah, blah. It just doesn't work. That philosophy is not in my vocabulary.
No, you just make it work and you figure it out.
Yeah, hopefully you learn like I did, and you apply the lessons that you learned
Yes.
on a smaller scale to a bigger scale. And it's really the same. I mean, it's coming up with an idea, it's putting it together, it's writing a script, it's getting the choreography, it's hiring the people, it's producing the video, it's getting the financing, and then editing, and then you think, it's done, and then no, it's
No.
actually done. It's actually worse than before, because now you've spent all this money making it, now you have to sell it. So basically it's learning the lessons that that you learn in other smaller small screen, in smaller venue, and I learned and I applied it when I started critical thinking. So
Amazing. So you're the producer of the feature film Critical Thinking.
I'm actually the executive producer.
Executive producer, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Most people don't say exactly what you do. It's very different roles.
Yes.
Although I played both roles, I have to say.
Yeah.
Because when it's your movie, you have to do everything,
Absolutely, hands-on. So yeah, of the feature film Critical Thinking, which is an incredibly powerful story. So can you share with our audience more about the film?
Sure.
For those who don't know the story and the significance of the film and why the story is so powerful.
Yes. So I'm an immigrant as well. I was born in Venezuela. So I came to this country and I did not speak English for a while. So I had a very tough few years in school. There were now Miami is, very Latino and very full of, diverse and beautiful people. At the time, however, it wasn't so. So I had a tough time, and it always stayed, like it cut into my soul, and it always stayed. And at the time, I wouldn't have said to myself when I was crying every day after school, that this would be something that I would be able to use as a jumping board off of, but it did. So what happened is in 1998, it was Sunday morning. It was a Sunday morning. And the Miami Herald at the time had a magazine, which was similar, to, I guess, maybe the New York Times Sunday magazine. They don't have it anymore. It was called Tropic magazine. So they did away with the print version. And on the cover was a boy with dreadlocks. He was from the Dominican Republic, and he was holding a chess piece, a king, and the article said "Kings from the Hood." Like at the time, that was the word that they used, hood. Yeah. So I looked at the picture and my mind exploded. It was like, okay, let me just read the article. So I read the article about this coach who is portrayed by John Leguizamo in the movie, Mario Martinez, who was part of a school called Miami-Jackson Senior High School, which at the time was like an F school. I mean, really, really, really a tough school in a very, very tough neighborhood, in a tougher neighborhood. I mean, it was like at the abyss. I mean, it was terrible. And throughout, and regardless of this, in spite of this, there was a group of kids, teenagers, 16, 17, 18 years old, who were winning national chess championships. They went from gangsters to ghetto warriors, kind of, I call them, and ghetto intellectuals. And basically, Mario had ushered in a 10-year chess program where he entertained all these boys and girls and took them from being, guys that got into a lot of trouble to guys who didn't anymore. And my head exploded, like I said, and I had like a shift in my mind, like a quantum shift about who actually is playing chess these days and where is all this genius coming from. And I realized that not just me, but most people in the world would say that chess is played in the northeastern United States private schools, with, white kids with bow ties, and uniforms, and that's it. And that was not true in this case, and it's not true now, and hasn't been true for many, many years. So I really just was like, I felt like I had, discovered something that needed to be told, and not just on a Sunday magazine in a newspaper.
No.
So the next day, basically, I interviewed the coach. I called the coach, excuse me, and we got together, and one thing led to another. I interviewed the boys that I, chose to be on film, which was the actual 1998 team that won. But for some who haven't seen the movie yet, I don't want to give it away, but that year was a big year for them. And it took very little time to get their life rights and secure that. And then as fast as that happened, it took 20 years to make the film.
Yeah, which is incredible.
It is.
2 lifetimes.
It's 1/3 of my life.
Yeah.
I mean, literally 1/3 of my life dedicated to this project. So that's the encapsulated story.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So the film is directed by Emmy Award-winning actor John Leguizamo. So can you share with us more about this experience and working with such a high caliber of talent? And what was it like as the executive producer of the film?
Well, he's actually won Tonys as well. He's known for his one-man shows on Broadway. And at the time, he's amazing. At the time, so I had gone through about 17 years of trying to make the movie. And I don't like to use the word try, because try is such a passive word.
Yes.
I don't really actually ever use it. But in this case, I just kept on it. I kept trying. And 17 years went by, and John was on Broadway playing one of his one-man shows, which he won many prizes for, and it was called Latin History for Morons, and where he played a teacher teaching the audience Latin history, because the genesis was his son, which is a true story, needed an assignment for one of his classes to find a hero, a Latin hero. And he went to his dad, he said, "Can you help me?" And anyway, John couldn't. And so he did this whole show about how he himself, being Latin, had to learn how to, about Latin history. And he had just finished the show. The show ended its Broadway run. And one of the other producers in the movie, Scott Rosenfeld, he was at the time speaking to John, and he said, "Well, now that you're, done, what do you want to do?" And he's like, "Well, I want to continue to play a teacher." And boom, I had known Scott from many years before, and he brought him to me, and John read the script, and immediately the reason that it took so long, that I was really trying to understand what was happening and why it took so long, I realized why. I always say it was marinating.
Yes.
Marinated. And then when John came along, I realized that this part was written for him, for real. I mean, it wasn't, but it may as well have been.
Yes.
And the script writer, Dido Montiel, is also Latin. John is Latin. I'm Latin. All the boys are Latin. The coach is Latin. So it was a very Latin and Black kids as well. And so it was a very inclusive movie. And he loved that. And when he took a look at the script, he signed on, right away. And he, once he signed on, it was very fast. We immediately went into pre-production, production, and then post-production.
Yeah.
And then after post-production, and we finished the movie, we got into South by Southwest, which is an incredibly prestigious film festival, which was the only film festival I thought I wanted to get into, which we did.
Yes.
And we were going to go, and then the pandemic hit, and it was shut down a week before we were going to go.
Oh, no.
So 20 years went by that I worked on this project. And when we finally had this unbelievable movie that we got into this film festival, COVID came, a virus came and ate the world, and now we need to make a horror movie about that.
For sure.
So,
For sure.
So that's what happened. And then we got into 4 other film festivals, which went on, but we couldn't go because they were in Europe and we weren't allowed in.
Yes.
So the irony is not lost on me.
For sure.
At all. In order not to cry every day, I would say, well, it's like a chess game. You think you're at checkmate and then you're not. You have one more move. And it's like this whole year has been another move,
Yes,
move.
exactly.
We did manage to sell the movie both internationally and foreign and domestic, which is great because a lot of films, unfortunately, were victims of COVID.
Yes.
And maybe will never be seen, which is sad, very sad. But we did manage. I mean, the trajectory is a little bit different than what it would have been ordinarily if we would have gone to the film festivals. But it is what it is, and the eyeballs on the movie are different than just going into theaters. It's a different trajectory. That's all. But that's what happened. Yeah.
Amazing. So you partnered with Harvey R. Chaplin for 30 years, and as you mentioned, you spent 20 years in developing critical thinking from the story to the film, which is incredible, and the level of dedication and passion you had to bring the story to life. So can you share with us the process as to why it was so important for you to stick with this project for so long?
Well, it has to do with the fact that it's a true story. And when I met the boys after the article was written, they were 17, and I was this woman who, they had never met really anybody like me, even though they didn't know that I had a similar experience, when I came to this country as an immigrant.
Yes.
So the interesting thing is that one of the boys that's portrayed said to me, why would a woman like you care about kids like us for so long?
Yeah.
And I don't want to cry because I cry every time I ask that question, or he asks that question, but it's a true story. So I had said to them, just trust me, I'll get it done. I'll get it done. None of us realized it would take that long, but like I said, I think it was meant to be. But regardless, it's because it was a true story, and I had told them to please trust me. I had this responsibility to not only follow through with my promise and for them to actually trust me and the trust come into fruition, but I had a responsibility to portray them elegantly, accurately, with no movie magic, no changing any details, making sure that they were proud of the characters that were playing them, and making sure that their life was portrayed as it was in those days, including, the nasty language that is in the film, which I made the choice, John and I made the choice to keep the way they spoke in 1998, is the way they spoke. And I always, people say to me, it's rated R, you're going to have a problem with, and I'm like, no, I'm actually not, because those kids these days hear those words all the time. Plus, this movie is not about ballet,
No, it's not.
Side of New York. Yeah, this is a gritty, ghetto intellectual movie about chess and the choices that they made in their life. And if I would have changed one single thing, it wouldn't have been accurate.
Or authentic, for that matter.
Or authentic, exactly. Yeah. It had to be authentic and elegant as well, because it affects people's lives. And whether or not this generation that saw these people, but it affects, let's say, when they have kids and they're going to see that their dad, you know, a movie was made out of their dad's life, and then their kids, and it goes generational. And so that was a big, you know, big weight on my shoulders to make sure that when I said, trust me, I meant it in, you know, in every way.
Yes. So I want to speak about entrepreneurship and being a producer, because obviously leadership or lack of leadership is such a big subject at the moment. So what would you say makes your leadership style so different? And can you please give us some examples?
I think I have something that is probably detrimental to me, but good for whatever project I take on, is that I'm able, I don't know what happened, or what, maybe I was born this way or whatever. My intuition is very strong. And so I follow it. I follow my intuition. That's the first thing. I'm also able to see, I'm not going to say the future, but I'm also able to, how do I put this? To see like around corners, maybe what's going to happen, and also take pieces from everywhere and put them together to create what I want to see as a final product. And whatever that takes, I do, even if it's sometimes people are not happy, you know, with the way that, you know, you are so obsessed with, I'm not obsessed with tiny details. I'm just obsessed with a final product, because it's too late at that point to change anything. The one thing that I'm really good at is knowing what I do not know.
Yes, for sure.
That's my expertise, I would say, in knowing what I do not know. And some things are not worth learning if you can partner up with somebody that doesn't do what you do, but fills in the gap of what you don't do. And work together, and you lift each other up to make a partnership that fills in all the gaps and is the most, it follows the physics rule of economy of energy, I think, where you don't have to work hard or harder. I mean, you work smart, and my nature is not to say, oh, I know everything and I did everything myself and I know how to do every single thing that I don't. I am the first person to say I'm good at ABC, but I absolutely do not know how to do this, and this. And that is, to me, not a weakness, but to me, it's a strength to know what you know and to act on it.
Yeah, and then also that it helps you to navigate, you know, through the narrative of what you and don't know. So bringing in those strong people is obviously essential.
It's very essential, because you're using somebody else's money, and there's only a certain finite amount of time, and you don't have time in that time block to learn things that you just don't know. So you make sure that, you know, at least I made sure that I was able to have partners that were great at what I was terrible at, and I was great at what they weren't. So that's, I believe, if you had to ask me what my biggest strength is that I know what I do not know, and I don't get upset about it. I just, you know, I just make up for it.
Yes, absolutely. So what would you say some of your biggest lessons and learnings have been within your career? I mean, there's probably multiple, but what are the ones that stand out the most for you?
The first thing I would say in general, just like a big one, you know, in general, is I believe that you should always do what you promise. Or don't promise anything, you know, because you can't say, if you give me this amount of money, I will do blah, blah, blah. Or if you act, you know, this way, this and this will happen. You have to, obviously, in my, at least for me, don't overpromise. You know, just make sure that, you know, whatever you say, you do. That's a lesson that I impart to any younger beginning entrepreneur, because it doesn't look good or feel good for anybody when you come up short. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
The other thing is a little bit more specific. The project is never actually over.
No, never.
When you make the movie, exactly, when I made this movie and we finally finished it, it was a movie in a can, like they say, in the can, but it was, a movie, but then you have to sell it. So every stage is just as important as the stage behind it.
Yeah.
And the important thing is to respect and make and honor every stage you're in. Like, make that, whatever you're doing at the time, try to make it as great, as best as you possibly can, because it's going to build on the next stage. So you can't sometimes, most of the time, go backwards to stage 7, let's say, when you're on stage 12. It's too late. So you have to just, like I said, that's the executive producer in me, where I kind of see around the corner, like how I want it to look. And sometimes you kind of have to speak truth to power sometimes, and be a little, deferential, I guess, and, say things in a way that makes it somebody else's idea.
Yes, that makes sense.
So to speak, so that it gets done. And whatever you have to do to make sure that it comes out the way your mind sees it, that's what I recommend. So I say, every stage, that honor every stage and respect every stage you're in. Don't ever be like, oh, we can fix it, later. You can't. You can never fix it later, ever. It just doesn't happen. It's rare that you can go back into a movie like this and change something. It's very rare. So always, respect the stage that you're in, so that you can get to the last stage, which is selling, which I thought was the last stage, which is not.
No, it's just a continuation.
Exactly. I initially thought, all right, we sold it, we're done, but it's not the last stage. It's keeping it relevant. It's competing with other similar projects and making sure that I'll tell you one of the lessons that I learned from critical thinking is that because it's a true story, and because it's a learning tool, this movie, about how to teach certain kinds of children and what not to do and what to do, and by true stories, I felt that there was a higher and better use than just eyeballs and on it and box office. I felt that this movie had a higher and better purpose after everybody saw it, which was a teaching tool for schools, universities, and stuff like that. Because these kids are everywhere, not just 1998 Miami. This could have happened any inner city, whether it was 1998 or whether it was today, in any place of the world. I mean, I'm on every social media channel, not me, but the movie, as you know, we met. And I get private messages and direct messages all the time about how we changed the world with this movie, and people that do not know each other from all corners of the world are saying the same thing. Oh, you don't need to win an award because we just entered the awards race, even though it'd be great, don't get me wrong. But people are like, what do you need an award for? You already changed the world. And listen, I cry. I'm not like this hard-nosed, producer. I mean, it's very emotional to know that these people who write to me say, I see myself when I was a little boy in this movie.
Yeah.
I was that boy, and I have not seen a movie representing me like this, or a girl. I mean, unfortunately, that year that we did the movie, there were no girls on that team. But I did put, girls in the classroom. But there are 9 other years to this film. There were 9 other years of the program, I mean.
Yes.
So I'm working on a TV series highlighting the rest of the years, which also had unbelievable stories that came out every year.
That's amazing. And it also, I mean, I think Carla as well, it's obviously unified a lot of people because these are the stories that need to be told. It's not always about the glamour and, that aspect of life. So I think that it's very important. And, what you've done is incredible.
That's what I want. I'm glad you reminded me. I was going to say at one point, and I think this is probably the good point to say it, is that there are beautiful stories everywhere. You
Yes.
don't have to go far. I mean, you just don't. There are incredible ideas to invent and beautiful stories everywhere, but not everything, not every story needs to be told.
No.
This story, at least in my opinion, needed to be told. I mean, there is the ROI, the return on investment everybody asks for in movies, but there also is a return on investment when it comes to making, you happy. Like, did this movie, working on this movie for 20 years, did it return your investment emotionally? Did it make you a better person? Did it change your life as well? Did it derail what you were doing and make you be something else? The answer is, for me and my partner, is yes.
Yes.
We changed with this movie. I didn't just change the lives of the people that we portrayed. They changed me completely. I became a different person, and the return on investment was emotional and spiritual, and it gave me happiness. And so it's all there. So this story, I thought, just me, needed to be told. And obviously what I thought was correct because everybody loves it. So
no, incredible. So COVID-19 has obviously turned our worlds inside out and upside down, and it's impacted the entertainment industry. So what and how have you adapted within these challenging times and launching the film in the thick of this pandemic? And how and what did you and all those involved in the launch of the film going forward? And how do you think it will shape the future of film moving forward?
Like I said earlier, and I'm glad you asked it again, is that the trajectory of the film would have been completely different if we would have premiered in Austin, Texas at South by Southwest. It would have, there would have been a bidding war. A studio would have picked it up. It would have been a completely different trajectory to the movie, to the release and the distribution. It would have been seen in movie theaters with popcorn and this. We don't have special effects. Obviously, the special effects are the boys playing chess, and each of their abilities make them superheroes on their own. They each have superhero abilities, but the trajectory changed drastically. I mean, to the point of anybody else, I think, would have just said, we did debate of whether we should hold back selling it now or wait till COVID was over. But we didn't know, when COVID would be over. And it's now been almost a year, and we're glad that we did release it when we did. But it had a tremendous, both financial and emotional toll on this film and everybody involved, because especially the boys who waited with me and the coach who waited the 20 years with me, because they're almost 40 now.
Wow.
I mean, when I met them and told them to trust me, they were 16 and 17. So it had a tremendous, not just, effect on the trajectory, but emotional and financial, impact. Exactly. And so we did adjust. We had to. But I didn't actually allow myself, not that I didn't give myself, I didn't allow myself, I didn't have the luxury of taking 1 minute to say, what just happened? Now what do we do? I just had to pivot and make decisions literally on the fly. And so I feel that, I hope that all the films made in 2018 and 2019 get seen, one day,
Yes.
because a lot of them haven't, and it's very sad. I don't know if I'm going to make any movies in the next year or two. I think I'm going to concentrate on TV series for now,
Yes.
because I just don't know, and I don't want to go through that
Uncertainty.
again. Yeah, that was just a big shock to me. And on the other hand, it brought the core group, including the engineers and the cinematographer and the editor and all the actors and the real people, just the whole core group. It brought us closer together for a much longer period of time than it usually would. When you make a movie and you sell it, you kind of go your separate ways, and there it is, But this time around, everybody had to work together to combat the fatigue, the COVID fatigue.
Yes. And everybody has COVID fatigue now.
Everybody does, and how to get around it so that this movie is still shown.
Yes. So what would you say some of your biggest career highlights have been?
Going back to the very beginning in the 90s, I think every time I sold a fitness video, I felt like somebody believed me, and they all sold, every one of them. Like I couldn't believe that somebody actually agreed with me. A big company bought it from me. Like I was like, wait, I kind of was, kidding, but no, they bought it. They believed me. So that prepared me kind of to make a movie and sell it. I mean, at least like I said before, initially, it taught me the steps, when it's over and when it's really not over. So that was a big highlight. But the biggest highlight to me, which I don't know if anything will ever top it, to be honest, is when I was on set and I was watching the real boys. By the way, let me just go back a bit. The real boys who were portrayed in the movie are obviously chess champions, and we hired them to be the consultants. So every single game that you see in the movie was the actual game that they played at the time.
Wow.
Yes, every game, every move, every game was the same. And the boy that played in that scene was the consultant for that scene, and on and on and on, up to the very end, which I'm not going to be a spoiler and say, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to say it for people who haven't seen it. But to me, the biggest, I don't think anything will ever top me being on set and watching these boys, that weren't boys anymore, and the coach, watching themselves being portrayed by strangers, by actors. Their faces were, I would cry like silently because the cameras were rolling, but I literally couldn't believe that I had this was obviously pre-COVID, that I had not only said, trust me, but I came through for them, because really it was just a love letter to them and to the school that nurtured them and the teacher. But that watching their faces saying, oh my God, there is somebody that's literally using my name and portraying my life as it was, and watching their faces, that I don't think I can ever top that.
No.
I don't even want to top that. I mean,
no.
Obviously, I'm doing other projects, and I'm sure there will be career highlights as well.
Yes.
But that is something that I just don't think I'll ever be able to replace. As I use it as like my pinned tweet or my pinned, Instagram post, or my pinned LinkedIn. That's like my pinned, moment, life moment that I believe, other than having my own children, I believe I can't top.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Incredible. So, having had a very diverse career within the industry, including health and fitness, and being a mom of four and having lupus, how have you managed to keep yourself so grounded in such a highly competitive industry while juggling so many roles?
I think that's just the way. I'm not that impressionable, in the sense I'm not like oh my God, there's a movie star. Oh my God, that's,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I mean, that's not really my nature, because everyone is just good at something else. So if there's a physicist that's good at something, it doesn't mean they're not as important as somebody who won an Oscar, that
Yeah,
kind of.
it's
So
just a different role.
it's a different role. And, having lupus is very, like my kids say, that's the least interesting aspect of my life, but it is extraordinarily, how do I put this? Extraordinarily, lupus is it pushes its way in. It's an uninvited guest every day into my life. Uninvited completely. Like, it's not on the guest list, but it's
Yeah.
for some reason just keeps coming in. I try to limit my activities and try to, that's why I also surround myself with people that can help me, because there are many times every day. This is not just once a year. I mean, every day I literally push it back. Like, literally, I can visualize myself just saying, wait, just stay there, just go back. I have a little bit more to go.
Yes.
Until it goes to the point where I have to, take a break or rest or whatever. So I think having an illness that impacts your energy level, and it does not impact my creativity, at least,
Yes.
but having an illness that definitely tells you when you need to stop, is you have to respect it as if it were like an adult in your life.
Yes.
You have to respect it, or it will punish you. So I think that's grounded me to the point where I like I said, my best quality is I know what I cannot do, and I
Yes.
give it. And how I've also managed to stay grounded is I'm an immigrant, like I said in the beginning. I didn't speak English when I got here, and I was beat up every day after school initially. And if I would go back and someone says, well, someone used to ask me, what would you say to the 9-year-old you? I would say, don't cry, little girl, because in 25 years, you're going to be making a movie about a very similar story, not chess, but, the whole immigrant situation about these boys that came from everywhere without speaking English, and look what they did. And so, so that immigrant mentality, where, like, I like to quote John when he says he works twice as hard to get half as much.
Yeah.
That immigrant mentality was born in me and ingrained by all the bullies, that I had when I was here initially and I didn't speak the language. So that also keeps me, it's almost like it's not, what it isn't is showing the bullies what I finally did in spite of them. It's not that.
No.
But it is that in a way. It's thanking them for giving me kind of
the
like
fighting spirit, because I think that's what it is.
It's like a magic carpet ride that they gave me, to showing not just them, but myself, that I wasn't just a little victim, that didn't speak the language and was beat up and wasn't chosen for, basketball and blah, blah, blah. It goes on. And I think that definitely, sowed its way into my personality and my character. And so that's what keeps me in place.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So moving on to more like of a personal thing, you have a vinyl wall. So where did this passion for this start on the creative side?
I wish I had it with me right this minute, but I love music. I'm I'm an audio engineer as well. I went back to school when I was 48 to become an audio engineer. Yeah, because I always wanted to know how sounds were created and why certain music affected me in a way that I couldn't, like why this song affected me more than this song, and why did Mozart, for example, affect me more than Beethoven, or why did Bob Dylan affect me more than the Beatles? Or what sound, how did Kanye West come up with a sound like this? And how did we get, and I didn't know. And I went back to school to learn the mathematics, because it's really very mathematical, how to write music and how to produce music so that it has the effects that you require from each song. And so I've always had vinyl. I love records. So what I did is, and my kids refer to it as my vinyl wall. I took every record cover and just plastered it on my wall as wallpaper. So that's pretty much what they're referring to.
Amazing. I love it. So what are the 3 key pieces of advice you would give to others looking to pursue a career in producing or as an entrepreneur in general?
I think I'm going to talk about just an entrepreneur in general, because I think if you have the skills, it can translate pretty much into anything.
Yes.
I think that this is for me. I'm certainly not speaking for anyone else, any other entrepreneur that we know or we don't know, or up and coming, or someone that isn't even born yet. Yes. But for me in particular is, like I said before, and I'm going to repeat it again, and I'm sorry for the repeating, but
that's good. It's good.
Know what you don't know. You don't have to learn everything. You just don't have to. It's sometimes a waste of time to try to give yourself a skill that you're not good at. So always know what you don't know and surround yourself with people that know.
Yes.
That's the first thing. Always have, in my opinion, an end goal. That's my specialty, is like lurking around and seeing around the corner and knowing that's what I want it to be, and there's no deviation. Unless you have to deviate.
Yes.
Know when your promise to yourself about not deviating, you have to break. So,
yes.
So kind of have an end goal. Don't look around, have blinders on like horses, don't listen to noise. And when somebody tells you you can't do that or no, use that as a, almost like a thank you for giving me more ammunition or more strength to know that I'm going to either prove that person wrong or prove myself right, more than proving them wrong, right. And I believe that to be an entrepreneur these days is a lot easier. I mean, if you want to make a movie, you can do it for free on your iPhone and put it on YouTube with free editing software. I mean, you don't have to. Of course, it's not comparing it to a feature
film, yeah.
But you can start your career these days. If you want to be a filmmaker, you can go on YouTube. If you want to be a podcaster, you can start a podcast. If you want to be a painter, you can paint and put stuff up on the internet. If you want to be a singer, you can put yourself up and buy a couple of pieces of software, record yourself, and with a laptop, where before you had to go into a music studio where there were millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment. It's not like that anymore. So I'm kind of speaking to the past and to the future. It's easier now to follow your passions. And if I were to say something to myself and to anyone else, is before you start, hone in on what you want to do and kind of do one thing at a time and do it well. If I would have, I did other things during the 20 years, obviously.
Yes, of course.
20 years, but don't dilute yourself to the point where you don't even know where you left off when you come back, to your original project. So don't dilute, have an end goal, don't deviate, pivot, learn how to pivot. It's very important to learn how to pivot, because look at what happened with COVID. I mean, if I didn't know how to pivot my way out of that, the movie would still be in the editing studio, not sold, and not on all the streamers.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, don't listen to noise, because everybody who says you can't do it or you won't do it or it's a bad idea, usually it comes from a place of, I can't do it, so I don't want you to do it either.
Yes.
know what I'm saying?
So they want you to remain at their level and not, pivot. So
they definitely want to keep you down. And they're, those people are truly unhappy when it becomes a success and it gets out there. There are few people that ride the success with you, very few. And those are the people you need to continue to surround yourself with and work with, or just be friends with, or, whatever you want to add to that. But definitely don't listen to naysayers.
No, definitely not.
And then my last thing is just do it. Literally just do it. Stop thinking about it. Stop planning it. Stop writing so much in the journal. Just take the journal, close it, put the pen down, and just start. Because there's never a proper moment to start a project. Never.
No.
I mean, I thought after 20 years, I finally started. My God, that was the perfect moment. To me, it was the perfect moment. And then COVID came. So you see, it just proves like there's never the right moment to actually start. And then, COVID, of course, had its own opportunity for many, many companies that were either too little to survive now have become the biggest companies, in the world. So what I'm saying is just stop thinking so much, stop being in your head so much, and stop grabbing your projects and pulling them to your chest like babies and saying, I don't want to share. I'm afraid someone's going to either copy me or say it's bad or don't do it. You can't. It's going to always stay as a baby with you. Just do it. Just get it out there, and hopefully it'll be successful. And if not, do something else, another one, so that's
absolutely. And also overthinking, I think, can also be kind of
get out of your head. Definitely get out of your head, because your head can mess with you big time.
Sure.
Once you get it out there, it's like a very big exhale.
Yes, exactly. And then the final question is, what legacy or how would you like to be remembered?
Wow.
I know it's a very tricky question for a lot of people.
No, it's actually, it's a really good question. I would like to be remembered as someone who always came through on both my promises and what I feel are my most important qualities, which is honesty and caring, and making sure that the people that deserve to know how much I both care and love and protect, even if they're not family, know about it. And I would love to be known as someone who always had the best intentions and followed through, and always wanted everybody else to be as happy and successful as I was at the time, or at the end, at the end of my life, whatever. I never want to be known as someone who pulled back at the last minute, or, lied to someone, or just wasn't honest. And I want to, my legacy right now is that I told these boys 22 years ago, trust me, and they did, and I followed through. And that's the micro part of my macro, what I want to be known as. Is always follow through with what you say, and be kind and gentle, and always, to make sure that what you promise you keep.
Yes, and remain authentic, right?
And remain authentic, not to pretend that you are, but hopefully it's in you.
Yes. So thank you so much, Carla, for joining us today. So if anyone would like to connect with you, what are the best platforms to do so?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn or any other social media platform. You can go to Critical Thinking Movie on Instagram or Twitter, or Facebook. On LinkedIn, I'm just on my own name, Carla Berkowitz. And I, just to let you know, I answer all of the social media asks myself. I don't let anybody speak for me. So it's always me that's talking.
Yes, that's amazing.
Just to let everybody know, it's not a studio. It's not anybody else.
Not an agent.
No agent, no studio, no anybody, no person I hire. I answer everybody myself. So you can always contact me on any of those platforms.
Well, thank you so much, Carla, and hopefully we can have you back in the future to see where you are in your journey.
Thank you so much for having me and for highlighting this beautiful movie. And I appreciate it.
Thank you.